Three things makes a person worthy of my complete trust. One is their inherent nature, two is the extent of power and influence that they wield, and three is the immensity of wisdom that they possess. And usually the extent of these characteristics that they have determines the measure of trust that I have in them. Now let's look at these individually, starting with the inherent nature of a person. Now, most people I know, including yourself, would only want to relate with someone who is profiled as good, right? Granted, there can be some benefits with getting in bed with someone who is reputationally bad, but that's not what you want to do all the time. You really want to be associated with someone who is good because you know you can trust them. You know they are not self-serving. You know that when push comes to shove, they will look after your interest as well as theirs. But one thing we can all agree is that even good people have limits, right? Their goodness is finite. And sometimes situations arise in your life where you only have capacity for one person, just yourself and people that you love. Not because you don't love other people, but at that moment, that's all that you have to give. And that's okay. You know, we're all human beings. It happens. Now hold that thought to one side. The next characteristic that determines the extent of trust I put in a person is the amount of power and influence that they wield. Because frankly, if someone has a great deal of power and a great deal of influence over people, it means they can make people do their bidding, right? They have influence over their resources, over anything that they own, and even over systems. And if that's what you're working with, I'll trust you. I would do anything that you say. But we can all agree that even with power, there's a finiteness with human beings. The most richest, the most intelligent person in the world can't even boast of 100% certainty 100% of the time. Maybe what they can boast of is prediction based on evidence, but that's how far that it goes. So we've got the inherent nature of a person, we've got the extent of power and influence that they wield. Now, the third thing that determines my trust in a person is the vastness of their wisdom, right? Because everyone is only as successful as what they know. And if you know someone who knows a lot, that's a relationship to treasure, and that's very beneficial. But just like power, the knowledge of a person is determined by the access they have at a particular time, because we are, as human beings, again, are limited by time and space. Now, I say all these to say that human beings are not beings enough for you to dump your whole eggs inside of their basket. Now, I know we make decisions based on the best information that we have, based on the best of our resources and how far that can go. But there will always be a margin of error because you're finite, right? We as human beings will always be at the mercy of our limitations, and that does not exclude our careers. So from the set-go, what would I have done differently about my career knowing that I am finite? I would have trusted the one who has no limitations and trusted him completely. The one who knows everything that my mind can't even begin to conceive. The one who knows tomorrow with 100% of certainty. The one who wields the most power, and the one who directs the will of men and even kings as a watercourse. But not a blind trust, an evidential trust. I would have trusted the evidence that he daily shows as someone who is capable of doing no wrong. The evidence that he daily shows as someone who wields a great deal of power and influence. The evidence that he is so wise and his wisdom knows no limits. And if I know that this person is incredibly wise, they wield a great deal of power and influence, and they are just righteous by nature, then I should have been keen to know them. I should have been keen to ask them questions about what they thought about me, about what they thought about where my life is heading, because your career is only one piece of the puzzle of your life. I would have asked him what he thinks about my end and the journey in between. I wouldn't have taken any step without him. I would have stopped when he asked me to stop. I would have pivoted when he asked me to pivot. I would have jumped when he asked me to jump without fear or without even asking why. I would have waited when he asked me to wait. And if I trusted him with my career, I would treasure what he says and I will act on it so promptly. All this is to say that I wish I trusted God earlier, and I wish I trusted him wholly and completely. Now, if you're like me and you had a little bit of a situationship, right, and you were late to the party when it comes to trusting God, I've got good news. One thing about the limitless power that I talked about earlier that he has, and the fact that he's not limited by time and space, is that he can bring your lost days, your lost miracles from your yesterday into your today. But, like all supernaturally natural laws, there's always a consequence for inaction or disobedience. So my plea and my recommendation today is please trust God as early as you can with your career. And you know what? While you're at it, trust Him wholly and trust Him completely. Now, if I veer off a little bit, why are we so keen about making good career choices? Two reasons, I think: safety and purpose, and they're largely intertwined, right? We want financial safety because we want to be able to afford our needs, our wants. We want emotional or psychological safety because we want to make a difference. We want to bring succor to an issue that's plagued a people, right? We want mental safety because we want to exercise a passion that we have, an interest, an ability, or a grace that we think that we possess. Because there's no feeling like knowing that you can do something so well, and while you're doing this thing, you're making a difference and bringing pleasure and happiness to people. Usually when it comes to our careers, there's a traditional route for finding safety and purpose. And it goes like this. First, you get into college, and then you get into university, and then you get really good grades that enable you to get into the job or the career of your dreams. Now, good grades are great. They are good tickets to a life that you desire. But if you ask me, they are just the standard. The goal is to go beyond having good grades. The goal is to go for a more sure currency that determines you're coming into a good life. Now, there's a more sure currency that buys a good job, that buys a good career path, that buys money, and therefore buys the things that money buy. And those things are value and relationships. What I would have done better is to make sure I strive for that more sure currency. Meaning, when I was at university, I should have focused on grades as well as value and relationships. Meaning that I should have stepped out of myself while at university. I should have thought widely about life and know that life does not begin and end with grades or within the walls of a university. That's really hard though, because when you're a student, and even more so an international student, you're just trying to get by. You're thrown with a whirlwind of changes that you have to embrace and adjust and thrive through and excel and just make it alive. The last thing you want to be thinking of is relationships or thinking of values that you can harness. But that is what you should be thinking of exactly, as well as good grades. So there's a more strategic approach to studying. As well as striving for good grades, you should be striving for experiences that amplifies the value that you bring to the real world. You should be asking yourself these questions. Who do I want to be? As far as I know, right? What do I need to be the person I want to be? Where can I cultivate the skills and the values and acquire the knowledge within my environment that gets me an inch closer to being that person? What other opportunities does my university afford me that would allow me to build this range of skill sets that allows me to be a valuable person in the society and allows me to get into the company or the career path of my choice? Now, those are the questions I wish I could have asked earlier, or someone could have told me to ask, or shown me how to ask, or even shown me how to navigate my way to finding those answers. So if you're studying, more so if you're an international student, these are the questions you should be asking. Now, as well as value, another more sure currency for a good life or a career of your dreams is relationships. Now, a man that I respect so much, Apostle Joshua Selman, always says this, and I paraphrase. He says, if you solve all your problems all the time by yourself, then you need to do a stock take of the kind of people that you let in and out of your life. Meaning they should come to a time in a person's life where when you don't know something, you know someone that knows it, or you know someone that knows someone that knows it. So I say all this to say is invest in relationships, nurture them with all the love, all the grace, all the intentionality, all the forgiveness, and all the maturity that is required. These days, people even get jobs before applying for them. And how does that happen? It's because they have value-adding relationships. So do a stock take of all the strategic relationships in your life and nurture them. You will thank yourself later. Finally, the last point is not more so what I wish I would have done previously, but is what I did and is what I continue to do, and is what I recommend that everyone does. And that is just be more audacious, and is somewhat linked to my previous point. Now, if you have a go ahead from someone who is all powerful, from someone who is most wise, and from someone who is inherently good, then you will jump at the sound of the word go, right? You will believe in all his guarantees because you know there is nothing that is outside of your reach because he controls everything. So whatever he says do, you do it without even blinking twice because he has all power, he has all wisdom, and he's just inherently good. Now, it takes guts, and will I say Godfidence, for a 15-year-old girl from a very small town called Oyibo in Nigeria to apply to schools and get into schools that she's only heard about on television that is reserved for the creme de la creme. Schools like University College London, schools like Imperial College London. And if that's not enough, to apply for jobs that has salaries that pay better than her teachers. Only a kind of Godfidence can do that. So believe God. Do not limit the realities of your possibilities because of your background. So I love that Bible verse, John 16:24. And if I paraphrase, it says, "Hitherto you receive not because you ask not. Ask and you shall receive, so that your joy may be full." Now, if your joy can be full as it pertains to your career, why are you content with less? Then a complementary verse, John 14:13 says, "Whatever you ask in my name." And another verse, "Whatever you ask according to my will, you will receive." Whatever you ask according to my name and according to my will, you will receive. Not according to your intellectual capacity, not according to your financial ability, not according to your background or whether you look or you feel the part. If your dream is to work in that company, if your dream is to get into that school, if your dream is to get into that career path that tugs at your heartstring, ask God about it. And if He gives you the go ahead, just do it. Figure it out with Him after you take the best step. To close this off, guys, if you desire a career and ultimately a life of your dreams, get to know the one who is inherently good, who can do no wrong by you. Not just that he's inherently good, he wields all power and influence over all men. And if that's not enough, his wisdom knows no limits. So it's such an obvious thing to do. Trust him, and whatever he says, do. As well as trusting and doing whatever he commands, focus on cultivating value, focus on nurturing strategic relationship in your lives. And lastly, go for it. Be audacious. Have a kind of Godfidence. If he tells you something, jump, just do it and trust him because why? He's good, he's all powerful, and he's all wise. Until next time, y'all, I'm Dr. Chiamaka Esther Amefe.